Hey everybody, a really fun build I've come up with here for the next video. This one I wanted to center around making a build on the Dragon Halberd. Now this weapon has quite a few actually notable distinctions from other weapons. This Halberd has a very thrust heavy attack class, especially with the R1s, but also with the backstab. Your crouch attack sadly is not a thrust, so you're going to get that horizontal slash whenever people are trying to circle around you. But the weapon also has a unique Ash of War. The spinning slash on this is faster than the normal halberd would be if you put spinning slash on it. So in case you didn't know, spinning slash has different speeds depending on the weapon type. The smaller weapons like medium swords, like curved swords, etc., they spin very fast in true combo, while the heavier weapons tend not to. But this weapon can true combo just depending on the angle that you hit them at it with when you start the Ash of War. This means that we can actually get a very strong combo finisher when we use this weapon, or even just like a get off me Ash of War. It does have a bit of a longer recovery though, so I do think it's better to use it to finish off your combos and your mix-ups. But there's another thing that's really interesting about this weapon. It is a quality weapon. Now, normally with quality, you would be looking to run 54 strength and try to hit a soft cap in dex like 60 or 80 in order to take advantage of the discount you can get on stats when you're two-handing a weapon. But because this weapon's scaling is a little bit lower than otherwise would be needed, and its base damage is higher, especially when you factor in the buff here, because the spinning slash on this actually gives you an extra 160 AR. It isn't really a huge trade-off on this weapon to one-hand it while still running quality, and then that leaves up room for a weapon in our offhand. I'm surprised this hasn't been talked about more by any of the bigger YouTube channels, but the Icerind hatchet is basically a perfect offhand weapon that synergizes so well with the Dragon Halberd. The reason being is we get frost buildup on the Halberd when it doesn't show here, but when we activate the buff, I believe it's around like 80 frost buildup. The Icerind hatchet has innate frost buildup, and you'll also notice that it's not a quality weapon, it has 0 int scaling. This is a weapon that's great for any builds that are going to invest heavily in dex and need frost buildup as an added bonus. So the other thing that's worth noting is that the Icerind hatchet actually has the faster hand axe move set. So this means that it can come out a lot faster when we use it in our offhands, and also it does the same poise damage of about 135, I believe, on an L1. This means that we can poise break anyone, even full goats running bull goat talisman. So this weapon is a really good both initiator, it's a good post-roll swing, because we really don't want to be doing it with the halberd most often in combos. It's too slow. It is a great way to also follow up a neutral R1. It's a true combo into the L1. So anytime in your mix-ups that you're going to be landing a neutral standard R1, you can follow that up with that hatchet, and then you can choose how you want to follow up. You can either do another R1 into L1 into R1. You can do R1 into L1 into Ash of War, which will roll catch, and then finish off with a very powerful nuke. The combos are endless on this build, to be frank. In addition to making this even better, because of the poke attack patterns of the halberd, we're going to lean heavily into that by using lead as armor, which will make our post-roll attacks more stronger, our backstep attacks more stronger, and our dash attacks stronger. We'll combine that with the spear talisman. And then also the backstep talisman here, the Fine Crucible Feather, is really good if we combine all of these into getting very comfortable with backstep R1s. So if you hard lock onto somebody and then do an attack unlock, you can actually chain your backstep if you hold down on the left joystick to backstep towards them into an R1. That's a great little aggressive initiation, and also you can go for backstep fishing with this talisman quite easily. So there is just an endless slew of combos in this build. You can play around with a bunch of different ways to do it. Just know that the Ash of War is usually best done at the end. The most common one that I've been doing lately has definitely been just like initiating with the axe a lot more, just because it's such a better offensive tool, and then I save the halberd more as like my defensive tool, where I can go for a neutral R1 rather than doing like running R1s and stuff, because the running R1 does not true combo into the axe, unfortunately. So yeah, try to initiate with this, which will always poise break, and then if they panic roll, you can just go straight into an R1 L1 combo follow-up into the Ash of War. You can play around with all the combos to your heart's content. But let's jump into the stats here. So it's a level 200 build. Maybe I should also show you the stats in the regular world, just so that we can take a look at non-Scattered Tree Blessing or Shadow Tree Blessing values. So 60 Vigor, 20 Mind, because we do want to be able to reliably keep our Ash of War up, and it is a little bit hungry on FP. It's 17 and 11, so it's definitely not cheap to cast the whole combo, and unfortunately the first part's the most expensive, which is sad because we do want to buff up for the entire fight. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, you'll swap out the 4th Talisman depending on your opponent. So this is great against Colossal weapons, anything you can backstep fish reliably on. Anytime where your backstep into poke is going to be valuable, but if you feel like you're going to need to trade through, especially like lighter weapons like daggers, you'll notice the build can hit 89 poise if we run the Bullgoat Talisman. And then finally, we've got the Stamina Talisman just as like our general purpose talisman. You could also look at swapping this for something like the Hammer Talisman if you're against shields or whatnot, but typically I just run the kick Misericord, and then we've also got the option for parries here. Another talisman that I was also having quite a lot of fun with was the Blade of Mercy. If you do manage to get a backstab, your Ash of War gets very frightening all of a sudden. It's already very close to a one-shot nuke on a lot of builds, so having this boost your AR is just another way to, especially when because that stacks on top of your lightning buff, that's another thing worth mentioning. You can swap out the talismans. I like the backstep one probably the most, though, especially because we're going to be running the Open Line Hard tier in order to counteract that damage negation nerf that we'll be seeing. So this gets stronger the lower your defenses are innately, just because of the way multiplicative bonuses apply. The Crimson Bubble tier is just a general purpose tier. Again, this build is just already quite good. It doesn't really require too much in the Wondrous Physic to contribute to the build. You could maybe look at the Stamina one instead, so that you can have the benefits of both the Crucible Talisman or Poise and the Stamina Talisman. That's another option. Anyways, 34 endurance is the amount that we require in order to give us enough flexibility to carry the Misericord and the Parry Buckler. Having these on soft swap is just makes our mix-ups even more threatening, because we can always at any point swap to a parry with little warning. It also gives us enough carry weight to swap our talismans freely if you want to play with other things other than what I have here. Strength and dexterity, we go for an even split. That is the best way to maximize the AR on the Dragon Halberd, and that also is what contributes to the Ash of War and should be your combo finisher most of the time. And so we do really want to kind of, if we had to choose, focus on the Dragon Halberd more so than the Icerind Hatchet, even though they do have quite like close enough when you factor in the attack speed of the Icerind Hatchet. They do have quite close ARs in that regard. But all the same, we're very close to the soft cap of 80 for the dexterity stat anyways. So you'll also notice that when we two-hand, we don't get as much of a bonus just because we are already so close to the cap in strength. I did notice, though, even when I ran 54 strength on this build and debated playing 80 on dex, that your AR doesn't go up that much with the Dragon Halberd because of its poor scaling relative to like other weapons where you might infuse them as heavy or whatnot, so or even as quality. But yeah, that is a really unique niche of the Halberd. It's almost like suggesting you should focus on one-handing and try to resist the standard quality incentive of going 54 strength, 80 dex, and then two-handing a heavy weapon like this. Intelligence we don't need, Faith we don't need, and Arcane we don't need. If we had extra points, I might have added some into Faith just to get access to some incantations, but this build really is centered around mix-ups and all of the different true combos / roll catch combos. There's far too many for me to like list out here. I would just say like learn your opening combos, like your 2 and 3 hit combos, and then just play around with ones that you can choose whether or not they punish or roll punish versus punish aggression upon a hit. Your standard way to counter aggression is usually to go into the spinning slash because it has hyper armor. So like after, for example, an R1 L1, opening up into the Ash of War will punish a aggressive opponent that's trying to like just start swinging through your combo. One thing to be aware of is when people jump, and they can jump over certain attacks, especially like the thrusts. For those types of situations, a really good thing to get comfortable with is crouch, is to do a crouch attack in order to follow up your openers, just because it'll add a little bit of height. Or you can always just start swinging with the hatchet really aggressively. This thing does put out enough damage and will keep poise breaking opponents if they just stay on aggression. So the Icerind hatchet is really making up for the Halberd's slow attack speed. One little note I'll make about the aesthetics here. So here's the armor pieces if you want to be able to hit that 89 poise break. I did really want to have the winged serpent helm just because of the aesthetic, although it does lower your poise down quite a bit. I found the best I could get was 88 if I swapped for the gloves of solitude. If you're willing to accept not hitting that 89 poise break point, you can also change up the aesthetic of the build there as well. In terms of consumables, I think I'm going to re-infuse the Misericord for Flame Art, and then I'm going to use oil pots to make my crits a little bit stronger just because I don't have any other source of fire. That'll also allow me to cancel the Frost proc whenever I want, but to be frank, I think just not canceling it and just trying to combo them down while they're frosted and taking extra damage is the general strategy with this build. You don't really need to keep reapplying frost, but it does help against boss fights. So I am going to reinfuse this shortly after this video. Alright, so I think that basically covers how the build works. Because of the lack of incantations, there's not too much to talk about in that regard, so let's jump into some invasions and arena matches. Oh, and if you want to practice your backstep fishing, go to Bonnie Village. I've found that practicing against this NPC is a great way to get a habit of, or like just to build up good habits. Also, don't forget you have to hold R1 if you want to make it a bit more reliable to secure to secure the backstab instead of doing an attack. So that's a great way to do it. And you got to make sure you look backwards before they start the attack. So usually you actually like preemptively turn looking backwards in order to set up the backstab with enough time.